welcome back to my channel. So if you couldn't tell already, today's video is going to be very different. It's something I haven't done in a really long time on this channel, maybe in about a year or so, but I'm titling it Boldly Bare, and it's going to be on how to be positive while you're struggling with or dealing with depression and anxiety. So first and foremost, I hope everyone knows I am no sort of expert when it comes to mental health or anything like that. I'm just a person that has dealt with it in the past, and I'm still struggling with it. And I know I posted a question on my discussions portion of my channel, and you guys seem to be really interested in this, and I think that's something that we all can share together. So I just really wanted to open the discussion, and maybe somehow something I say will help you in some way, and that is truly the goal of this. Again, I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be, so take that with a grain of salt. But if you guys are not interested in hearing my backstory and my experience with this, I will link down below the timestamps of when you can just fast forward to get to the part where I talk about my tips. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. I will try to do my best to summarize this in a way that makes sense, but I'm sure I could rant about it for a long time, so I will do my best to condense it. I started seeing a counselor pretty consistently when I was in college, and when I was talking with her, I just thought my anxiety started in college, but I had no idea that I've had anxieties and depression since I was a kid. I talked with her and I kept going back, and she was like, well, tell me about high school. Did you experience anything in high school? And I was like, yeah, there was this one day where it was overwhelming, the sense of just deep sadness, so much so that my mom had to pick me up from school. And I started thinking about what would have caused me to feel depressed in high school. And there's so much pressure, especially in my community, my area, to have good grades and go to college. Like, that is so huge. There's all this pressure on you to do well in school, you know, have sports teams that you're a part of. I had a full schedule. I also did extracurriculars, so I was like a cheer coach on the side. Like, I was doing so many different things and going like 90 miles per hour and barely having any time to stop. So that was me in high school, and so she's like, well, what about middle school? Did anything happen in middle school? And I was like, no, not really. Middle school is pretty easy. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, wait, no, middle school was rough. It was not fun. Like, there was like a couple friends. I mean, honestly, everyone's so insecure in middle school. I feel like that's when people are the meanest, because they just can't even control their emotions. They don't understand their emotions, so they can't control them. But people were really mean back in middle school. I was like, yeah, actually, those things would have made me anxious in middle school. And then she was like, well, how about elementary school? I was like, no, elementary school's a breeze. What would I have to worry about in elementary school? Then I started thinking back to elementary school, and I realized in 4th grade I had to be homeschooled because my teacher bullied me. She bullied other people in the class. As soon as the parents left, like, she would literally like point out kids in class and like really like just dig on them. I eventually had to be homeschooled in 4th grade. When I was homeschooled in 4th grade, I really wanted to pursue modeling. I've always loved acting and taking pictures, and I really wanted to do modeling. I thought it'd be really fun, so I did it for me, and I loved it. That was just such a cool experience. But the problem is, it's at that age too where it's like 4th or 5th grade girls, and those hormones are really starting to kick in. They were just really mean. Like, at first when I started it, everyone was totally fine with it, but all of a sudden, like, people just started talking about my back. And like, I even had a friend who I hung out with at recess, and she was telling me that all these people were saying I'm stuck up because of model, and I'm like, well, what do you think? You're my friend. She's like, yeah, I kind of think so too. And I'm just like, where is this coming from? And so it was really sad to me that my passion and something I was really excited about and loved just took a turn for the worse, and I went from having a great friend group to all of a sudden just feeling really isolated. All this to say, when I started thinking about it, thinking that my anxieties had started in college because there's so much pressure to do well in college and you want to fit in with people, and I was in a sorority and seeing all these other people be so successful, I thought it started there. But then when I really started tracking it, it had started so much earlier, and I had no idea. And I didn't even know how to help myself because I was so unaware that that was what was happening. Just thinking about those anxieties and those pressures building up, and all of a sudden when I'm a sophomore in college, it just explodes. And I went on medication for it, and I got panic attacks. I've never gotten a panic attack before. If you've never gotten one, it's horrifying. I'm sure people get different extents or levels of it, but it's horrifying, and I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. This is when me and my boyfriend started dating. How he stayed with me through all of this, I do not know. He's a really great guy for sticking with me through all that. For whatever reason, during senior year and when I was in Florida, I didn't feel it as much. Like, it would still come and go here and there, but the extent of it wasn't as extreme. All of a sudden, I would say the past couple of months, they've kind of crept up again. I feel like it's been really exaggerated because of the holidays. And I feel like a lot of you guys have been feeling that too recently, where it just feels like it's been rough recently. So anyways, I'll just say that's kind of my story with it. I recognize there's been times where it's been really bad and times where it hasn't been bad, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. I'm sure there's so many of you that have had it way, way, way worse than me. I know friends who have been hospitalized because of it, because it's been so bad that they've had the desire to kill themselves and they need to get help. But I do think it is something that really needs to be talked about more, and I don't want to ever be afraid to talk about things that I'm struggling with, especially on YouTube or social media, because there's so much perfection out there, or falsified perfection, that I feel like it's really hurtful for people who are struggling with these things, because if you're seeing that all the time, it's just like a never-ending cycle of you just feel like you're not good enough. And so I just want to show you guys and talk to you guys about my struggles, some things I've done in the past that have seemed to help when I'm really in these mindsets. I've been there where I can't do anything, I can't get out of bed because it's just so overwhelming. So I hope this video helps you. That's a probably way too long background on me, but let's jump into some ways you can be positive while feeling depressed or anxious. So before I give you my tips, I just kind of briefly want to define what positive means, at least to me, because I'm sure it means so many different things to different people. But to me, the idea of being positive or positivity is completely separate from being happy. So I believe that you can be positive even when you're not happy. Being positive is just choosing not to dwell on the negative and not to perpetuate the negative. I guess in some ways it can mean being happy and being focused on that, but I think that if you focus on being happy, especially when talking about something about being depressed or being anxious, they don't go together. And I don't know if some of you maybe have never experienced this, but for me, it is impossible for me to be happy when I'm depressed. Like, I've tried and I've just frustrated myself. So I want to separate those things beforehand, being positive and being happy, because I do believe there's a way to be positive or take positive action while you are feeling depressed or anxious. Just want to put that out there before I went into my tips. So tip number one is to try to give yourself grace and not force yourself to be happy. So that's why I separated them beforehand, because this is my first tip. I think for me, at first, I was in denial of being depressed and anxious, because when I saw commercials for people who are depressed on TV or even in movies, the person who's depressed is usually like an older person who just looks really sad and they're just moping about. But like, depressed people can be seemingly happy. They can be seemingly okay. I love those photos you'll see every once in a while on Instagram where people show side by side, this is when I was feeling suicidal or depressed, and this is when I was normal. And sometimes the normal picture looks more moody than the depressed picture does. So you can't really just judge that someone's feeling depressed or anxious just by the way that they look physically. When I was, I think, dealing with this in high school, and when I was dealing with this in college, I kept resisting it and resisting the idea that that's what I had and that's what I was dealing with, because I didn't fit that image in my mind of what that looked like. But I've realized now since dealing with it that it looks so different, and there are so many young people that have to deal with this and have to struggle with this. And honestly, I just want to say, you guys need to give yourselves some grace, because once I stopped trying to fight it and trying to force myself to be happy, because I was this person that thought you have to be happy all the time. Like, that's just who you are. You're a happy person. You need to be happy. And when I couldn't be happy for seemingly no reason at all, it was so frustrating for me, because I just didn't want that. I didn't want it. I didn't choose it. And that's what I realized, is people don't choose depression and anxiety. They don't want it. It just kind of happens. I can't even choose how long it's there for. Like, it could be a couple of days, it could be an hour, I've had it even before for half an hour. So the biggest thing that's helped me is just giving myself grace and just kind of accepting it when it comes, and just recognizing, like, okay, this is happening right now, and it's not going to be here forever. And just recognizing that and just giving myself the grace and realizing it's okay that I feel like this. And in fact, it's normal that I feel like this, because there are so many people that deal with this. It's not abnormal, just people don't talk about it, which is really sad. And then don't force yourself to be happy. I think the worst thing for me is hearing someone say, like, having me tell someone, like, oh, I'm feeling really down. Like, well, don't be. And it's like, you don't, it's just so shows like little understanding. That's like, you don't understand. It's like, that's what's happening right now. I can't just decide that I want to do that, because it just makes it seem like you chose to be in that spot in the first place, which I can say with 100% certainty that there is no one that would ever choose to be in this state. So if you ever tell someone like, oh, just be happy, oh, like, just snap out of it, it's really actually pretty insensitive, and it will make the person feel worse because they can't get to that state. And so they want to, but they can't, and it just kind of reminds them that they're supposed to be there, and it makes them feel more abnormal. What you can do for yourself is just give yourself grace and be okay with not being happy, and just recognizing that like there will be times where you'll be happy and this is a time when you're not, and that is okay. My second tip for taking positive action is to ask for help. I am one of those people that likes to carry things internally and just deal with it and not burden anyone else, and I don't like seeming weak, I guess, and so I don't like anything that makes me seem weak. And so for this, I mean, this definitely makes me seem weak in my eyes when I'm dealing with it. It's really, really hard for me to ask for help, especially because I know the people closest to me don't experience this and they don't understand it. And it's really hard to explain this to someone who doesn't understand it. One of the best TED Talks I've ever seen was talking about depression, and they explained it in such a beautiful way, and they just really nailed it on the head in a way that I felt like made sense to me. And what they did was they talked about how, okay, let's just say a person not struggling with anxiety and depression, and they want to make a sandwich. What do? They go make a sandwich. It's as simple as that. They just decide, I'm gonna go make a sandwich. Now, someone with depression or anxiety that is really feeling it in the moment, what they might go through, and this is something that I've gone through too, is I'm laying in bed and I'm hungry and I want a sandwich. But then I think about like, okay, well, I have to physically sit up in bed. I have to turn my body. I have to put my left foot down to get off the bed. Then I have to put my right foot down. Then I have to go over to the door. Then I have to open the door. Then I have to walk outside the door and walk the 10 steps to get to the first stair. Then I have to walk up 12 stairs to get to the top. And then from there, I walk a little bit, 8 more steps to get to the fridge. I open the fridge. I have to look for the food. I have to grab the sandwich meat. I have to grab the bread. I have to grab the mayonnaise, and then put all those things on the counter. Then on top of that, I have to go grab a knife to spread the mayonnaise on the sandwich. Then I have to put the lettuce down first, and then the meat, and then I have to put on this bread last or whatever. You have to put the rest of the ingredients away in the fridge one by one by one. And then you have to cut the sandwich in half, and then you have to go sit down on the couch, and then you have to eat it bite by bite by bite. The first person, they're just like, yeah, like if you're hungry, go make a sandwich. But to the person who's feeling depressed or anxious, all of a sudden, like the smallest task becomes this really burdening, exhausting thing in their head, where the idea of even just making a sandwich just sounds terrifying. It just sounds so exhausting. Like, think about all those, you think about every single little step, and you just feel like you can't do it. And the idea of doing it is just so overwhelming because you think about all those little steps. Something very, very small all of a sudden just becomes blown up in your mind way more than it should. So it's hard for me to ask for help, but what I try to do is I try to educate those people around me that I would like to ask for help, so that they know how they can help me personally, and they can kind of understand what my mind is like when I'm in that sort of zone. But for me, at least, talking with someone, not like a group of people, but like one trusted person has really, really helped me. And I think I'm also an external processor. Like, I either need to write things down or I need to talk about things, which is probably like why I like YouTube, because I talk about things. But that helps me kind of release that. So for you, if you feel like you're the same way, where you just need to get things out, you're an external processor, try talking to someone. Seeing if you have one trusted person. It could be a sister, sibling, parent, good friend, uncle, aunt, grandparent. Just finding that one person that you can really trust, that will really come alongside you, that loves you and that can understand. I think that would really help just in the moment, just to kind of talk things through and help both of you guys understand like what you're going through. For me, talking with someone really helped me get outside my head and put past some of those anxieties. My next tip for being positive, again, not positive in the happy sense, positive just like not dwelling on the negative, is recognizing in that moment what is a truth and what is a lie. I mean, you could even write it down. I do it mentally. Even when I'm out of it and I'm not feeling depressed or anxious, recognizing what is a lie, so that when it happens, I can easily spot it and be like, oh, that's not true. But when I get depressed or anxious at least, or really when I get depressed, I feel like I have these like thoughts, like these really, really loud thoughts about me not being worthy, me being burdensome, and they'll come in the form of like, you don't deserve to be with your boyfriend, he deserves so much better than you guys shouldn't be together, you deserve to die, your friends don't like you, you are worthless. It's not even like I'm trying to think of these things, like they just kind of like, it's like on repeat. It's like watching a commercial. It's just kind of, it just keeps kind of flashing before your eyes, and it's just there and you can't turn it off and you can't get rid of it. It's helped me to recognize as soon as I think that like you should die or you don't deserve to be alive. And again, I'm not suicidal in the sense that I would never take action on this. So, I always explain it to people because I think it's important to know that like some people might, and that if they do feel like that, they should definitely get help for that. For me, I know that I'm not gonna act on it. Like I know I'm not bold enough to act on it because I can recognize like that is a lie. Like that's not true. Even though I'm thinking that and it feels real in my heart, like I know that's not true. And especially if I think like, oh, your friends don't like you, like I start to recognize like, oh, that's a lie. Oh, that's a lie. That's not true. And then I recognize like, oh, I'm probably just feeling really depressed right now. I'm not just feeling tired or bummed out. Like this is something completely different. Once I recognize that's what's happening, it's really easy for me to give myself grace and be like, okay, this is happening right now. Okay, we're just gonna deal with this and that's okay. Anyways, I probably did not do the best job explaining this one, but just kind of in your mind, figuring out like what your lies are. If you have these negative thoughts that you know when you're of clear mind, wait, that's not true. Like I'm so loved by my friends and family, like I have so much value. Just don't believe in it and be able to separate in your mind. Even if your heart is feeling that in the moment, just try to your best to separate what is true and what is not. This next one I kind of discovered last year, and I felt like it was the biggest like epiphany moment for me in struggling with my anxiety and depression. And it was recognizing that introverts and extroverts probably experience it completely differently. So I'm a huge introvert. My boyfriend is a big time extrovert. So that's kind of what made me realize it, is because when I was feeling depressed, he kept saying stuff like, oh, like you should come over, you should hang out with friends, you should do this, you should do that. And to me, it's like, hanging out with people, I love it, but like going to like a party or something as an introvert, it's just really draining. So when I think about the categories of introvert and extrovert, to me it's like what gives you energy, what brings you peace. And for me, I get really drained by going to like parties or even like being at work all day long. Like I love just like journaling or even like watercoloring, do my makeup, because I'm able to just focus on something and be creative, and I'm again an external processor, but by doing that I can get my thoughts out. That is so much more life-giving than going out with friends or going to a party or being around a ton of people. Like that is so draining for me, and I feel like knowing that is really helpful when struggling with anxiety or depression, because that carries through. So for me, when I'm feeling depressed, my boyfriend's like, well, you need to be around people, like that's going to help you, and then it kind of does in the moment, but then afterwards I just feel even worse. And so what I've recognized is that when I'm feeling depressed, if I take time to journal, if I take time off of my phone and just choose not to look at it, because I feel like when I'm feeling depressed, the last thing I need to see is like people on social media like on vacation or doing fun things or hanging out with people, because I will just give me even more of a fear of missing out. If I'm already feeling like that, I really need to intentionally choose to not look at my phone, and taking some quiet time to read or reflect or journal or watercolor or just something that brings me peace will be so much more helpful. And I've discovered that if I do that, or even if I love coloring books, so even if I just color for a while, do something mindless, but just feel like I'm doing something that brings me energy, like that really does help. And maybe if you're someone who's extroverted and you are feeling depressed or anxious, maybe like being with friends helps you out, because the idea of being alone would make it worse. So maybe you do need to have that social interaction to help you deal with it, or feel like it's not as prominent or in the forefront of your brain. That was really interesting to me once I kind of realized like, wait, and I actually talked to my counselor. My counselor was the one that told me about that and told me that people process things differently. And so I just thought it was so interesting that people who are experiencing that are introverts, might need something else to help them other than extroverts. Something positive you can do, again, positive in the sense that you're not focusing or perpetuating the negativity that you're experiencing. Try redirecting your thoughts by either writing them down or journaling about them, or if you're social and you're an extrovert, maybe talk to a friend about that, maybe go hang out with friends. Do something where you're not just focused on your inner thoughts and you're able to do something else to focus your mind on something else so your mind isn't so focused and honed in on those negative thoughts. I'm sorry if this is the world's longest video, but the last tip I have is, and pertains particularly to anxiety, is find small things that might be giving you anxiety and fix them, or try to fix them. So for me, right now, I'm so glad I set this up so you guys can't see my room, because my room is a mess. It's disastrous. Like, I have all this makeup over there. I have mugs over there. I have more makeup and just like receipts and stuff. There's so many things going on in my room right now that I don't think about consciously, but as soon as I tidy things up, I'm like, wow, I feel so much better. I had no idea that that was even bumming me out, but like subconsciously it's getting to me and it's creating a more anxious, I guess, environment for me. Even something as small as like rearranging my closet. My closet was completely disorganized, and one day I just completely reorganized it into different sections. Like, I have now, I could do a video if you guys are interested, but I have now like sweaters and work tops that are long sleeves, and work tops that are short sleeves, and pants, and I have jackets, and I have a whole section for sweatshirts and jeans. But just like reorganizing things and bringing back that sense of organization and kind of clarity just helped so much. And I had no idea like how much that was stressing me out until all of a sudden like it was organized. Like, it was the most surprising thing. Just finding something that you can control, because I feel like with anxiety, you are so focused on all these things you can't control, and it's overwhelming because you just feel like you're out of control. For me, finding something that I can control and feeling like I've accomplished something. I recognize that I feel happier with my day, or more satisfied, when I feel like I've accomplished things. For me, I know that that's kind of something that causes anxiety, and is when I don't do a lot of things. Just by doing something small, like cleaning up your room, or just like tidying something, or even like, I guess, writing down things in a calendar and having it organized there. I think that would help too, just showing that you do have control over something, and you can feel like you accomplished something in your day. Even if you did nothing else, you can just kind of focus on that and feel good about that. Doing that just makes me feel more satisfied, I guess, and helps me feel less anxious. Anyways, sorry that took way longer than anticipated, but I do think it is a topic I don't take lightly, and I think there's so many different people that experience this in so many different levels, and there's no right or wrong or way to do it, and there's no best way. I mean, there are days too, I do have to say, where there is absolutely no way I can be positive dealing with depression and anxiety. And I think, again, going back to my very first tip, is sometimes that's okay, and you need to give yourself grace and recognize, like, it's okay, I'm not feeling positive, I'm not feeling happy, the world will move on, I'm not a horrible person, like, it'll be okay. And honestly, it means so much to me too when you guys are saying that you're having a rough day and my videos can somehow brighten your day. Like, that just means so much to me, especially like dealing with this. I can completely relate to that. I know there's some YouTubers I just love watching, and even if I'm having a crummy day, like, I just love watching their content, and knowing that I could do that for other people is honestly the best compliment anyone could ever give me, just because I really know what that's like, just not have a good day, or just feel really depressed and not being able to fight it. And if there's any way I can somehow help you guys with that, that is like the biggest goal I could ever accomplish. So I really hope this video helped. If you guys have other tips too, I would love to hear them, because there are some days where I just cannot beat it. And if you guys have tips on how you help yourself, or different things that have helped you in the past, like, please leave them down below. I'm sure not only I could probably gain from them, but I'm sure other people reading it could gain from that as well. So thank you guys so much. I love all you guys. You guys are so, honestly, such a godsend to me, and you are so happy and positive. And I know a lot of you talk about how positive I am, but honestly, I hope you guys know how much your positivity and your sweet and kind comments mean to me. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!